Okay, so let's get back to just a good old-fashioned recap here on the channel. July 3rd, taking us back to 2010, July 3rd, 2010, I should say. James, channel member James taking us back there. Trying to spit that out appropriately. And it was a good one. Now, look, if you're only here for the big, giant, deep improvised jams, which I'll admit sometimes I am, sometimes that's all I'm here for. But other times, like, look, we'll take whatever we can get. And in fact, here more recently, I have been into more what this kind of show was. This was just a show where they didn't get real deep with the jams. It didn't seem to follow much of a format either. Today's shows, by today's standards anyhow, these shows they play today, well, yes, every show is different. It does seem to follow a similar format. They have those set of songs that we are going to get early and often. Songs that they like to open shows with, open sets with, close sets with. Play exclusively in the first or second set. Well, this show didn't seem to have that feel to it. Although I must say, I'm also not a bit of a 2010 historian, but this felt much different than, say, the Blossom show that I was at in 2010. Not only an upgrade in like overall energy, but there was just a bunch of hits too, man. I mean, just the hits kept on coming. I mean, I will get to the set list. And it's still, while they had been back for over a year and a half at this point, it felt more like everybody was just still happy to be back, While even in 2010, I went to a show solo, but stood next to some really stinky guys from Chicago, in fact. Maybe, well, I was going to say, it's like everybody was just happy to be there and smiling, but I might have been like, what a... Yeah, it kind of smells like you traveled directly from the Chicago shows. Kind of seemed like they hadn't showered since the Alpine shows in June. Now, this was a 2-night run in Alpharetta. I believe ending this run of the summer tour, this first one did, get a bit of a tease for the following night. Got a Rage Against the Machine tease and Harry Hood. But before we get to all that, and let's just go right to the first set, right at the top. Character Zero. See, a little bit of a sign, like that was an example of something that normally is reserved for the end of a set, even often in the second set. Although things are slightly changing over the last year or two with Character Zero. And this was also a sign of things to come in the show itself. Character Zero, really just a Trey Wank fest, and you were going to get a lot of that throughout the night. Bathtub Gin was a big one. Highlights there. And the only problem with squeezing all these songs into the first set was we got a little shorted on the gumbo. So if the Bathtub Gin, really the McGrupp Gin back-to-back was quite stellar. Zero, Destiny Unbound, Rift, that was the trio that started things. Then we get down to some serious business with the McGrupp and Gin. Mountains in the Mist, I guess, is what's supposed to cool us down. NICU and Gumbo. No, I'm just ripping through these, I know. The Gumbo, just so short. My sweet one. Stealing Time from the Faulty Plan, really the first dud of the night. But then they quickly follow that up with Page's Strange Design, a song that I'm sure I will be singing over the next few days. Get a run of S's here. S. So Stealing Time, Strange Design, and now Sanity, a song that I once snuck on a mix CD I made for my mom. Got to put together all the bluegrass stuff from the Baker's Dozen and then put a Sanity at the end. Just a reminder, this is the kind of son you have, lady. All right, and then Run Like an Antelope ended the first set. So like I said, the Bathtub Gin, though, it was just similar to what we get now. It was just straight Type 1 Bathtub Gin all the way through, just building and building into just a major crescendo, coming right after a fan favorite in McGrupp, but a bit of a rarity. Any era, really, McGrupp. So that was a great moment there in the first set. And then Mountains in the Mist, a song way back in 2010 I probably was not a big fan of, but... this one hit the spot, so maybe this is a song I possibly would have judged differently back then. I would have thought maybe there was a couple of duds in the first set. Not really, though. 13 songs in total. Hopefully I've included the set list somewhere for you to look at here. And then, so let's just get over to the second set. Shall we? How'd that one start? Rock and roll. Okay, so maybe things are a bit normal. Rock and roll, Caspian, Tweezer, 1, 2, 3. And while I would say, yeah, these are then, or were then, and still are jam vehicles, so maybe this thing wasn't as different. You'll see what I'm talking about here when we get to the end. I mean, that start was Zero, Destiny, Rift, McGrupp, Gin. That was a strong start, but then we got a little bit of a weird ending after we got through our jam vehicles here. Probably, maybe, yeah, rock and roll was all right. You know, it was just straight rock and roll, like it says. And the Caspian had this cool ambient end to it that gets us into a tweezer. You know, maybe as you think the Caspian's going to extend longer and perhaps build back up, you just get these loud tweezer notes come crashing in. And tweezer was everything you would expect from a tweezer, while, you know, pretty condensed, all these running around somewhere in the 8 to 12 minute range, I believe. Then comes Slave to the Traffic Light. He sustained one note for about 8 to 12 minutes, I believe. This was Sustained to the Traffic Light. Also odd, placed right here in the middle of the set. You know, again, not what we're used to now, for sure. And then followed that up with a Bouncing Around the Room. You know, I don't know where that feels like a first setter. And then just set closer after set closer after set closer after set closer. Now, there are times when it feels like they pull this move occasionally, and maybe even a bit of this at Columbus, and then other times where it's like, I don't know, are they just trying to work people up into a frenzy, or are they deciding, hey, you're not worked up enough, we're not leaving you here like this? I'm not sure what it is. But on a night like this, a night like tonight, it just felt like they were really loose, you know, and they were just busting off songs. Trey was ready to rock. Pretty much all of these are shredders. Harry Hood, like I mentioned, you may have not have noticed it. I probably wouldn't have, now knowing that they played Killing in the Name the next night, Rage Against the Machine cover song. You get a slight tease from Fishman in the Harry Hood there early on. Then we get to Canada's own Loving Cup. Shout out to all the Blue Jay fans. I was heartbroken with you the other night. But then we weren't done with the set closing nonsense. Sleeping Monkey tweezer reprise. So really, about the last 40 minutes of the show felt like a goodbye. Plus a Slave to the Traffic Light in there. Slave to the Hood in the same set, though. Wow. Outstanding stuff, really. So for 2010, you know, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I know Phish Radio wasn't a thing in 2010, but I feel like I listened to this show on Sirius XM. I don't know. Maybe sometimes they broadcast shows back then occasionally. I mean, I know going all the way back, XM did Coventry, I believe. So it's possible they did do this. Or maybe it was even Jam On, that show Gone Fishing, hosted by the General of Jam, Jonathan Schwartz. The Jam On possibly played it. Gone Fishing. Over a couple of nights, obviously. Maybe that was it. I did used to listen to Gone Fishing almost every night. All right, well, we've gone on long enough, James. I believe this was your second show. And a lot of hits in here. I love Destiny Unbound, McGrupp, Bathtub Gin. Got a little shorted on the gumbo. Sanity, always fun. Thought that ambient end to Tweezer was kind of cool. So just a taste of what was to come, you know. Like I said, it wasn't the beginning. They had been back for a while, but it still just felt like, you know, hey, seeing old friends, you know, and friends you wanted to see. Every now and then you run into somebody and you're like, ah, shit, them. All right, boom, we're out of here. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a member, James. And New Year's Eve will be here before we know it. Viva Las Vegas. Oh, wait, they're going to be at MSG.